Thank you for joining us today. Today's PMA Academy session is on the global royalty machine and is proudly presented by SourceAudio. A big thank you to our moderator today, Hunter Williams, and the entire team at SourceAudio for your partnership and for your support. We're really looking forward to this, and thank you for putting this together for us.
Yeah.
As you guys are jumping in, please say hello in the chat. If you have any questions, obviously throughout the session, you can leave those in the chat as well. We are recording the session today, and it will be available for playback within the week. A couple more things. I would like to also thank our PMA Academy series sponsors, APM Music, the NMPA, TuneSet, and AdRev. And I will now turn it over to our moderator today to introduce his panel for the Global Royalty Machine presented by SourceAudio. If you can all join me in welcoming Hunter Williams.
Hello, everyone. Good to see you. I see all these hellos from the audience there coming in through chat. A lot of folks I recognize. Glad you're here. Glad to be doing this as well. So, Global Royalty Machine. It's a big project, a big effort, as you guys know, in ensuring that you're maximizing your global royalties. And so we're going to talk to you today about some of the ins and outs and the opportunities, the options for best practices, best options for getting the representation you need. We've got a great group of folks here, all people I love and know, and have had the pleasure of working with for at least two of them for many, many years, and getting to know Ross, having gone to Liverpool where he's based at Sentric back before the pandemic hit. Got to meet him in person and glad to be working with him. So Ross Adamson from Sentric Music, again based in Liverpool, England, is our first guest here. Ross, say hi.
Hello, everyone. Pleasure to be here. Yeah, really excited to get into the meaty topics of global royalty collection. So Sentric's main office is in Liverpool. That's where Hunter and I most recently met. But I'm actually based in Scotland, in Glasgow, a little bit further north in the rain and the cold, basically.
Ross, why don't you tell us, and we'll do this for everybody, why don't you tell us your background, how long you've been at Sentric, what did you do before, what you currently do at Sentric, etc.
Yeah, my current role at Sentric is as client manager, so I guess, or senior client manager now. You know, I guess the bullet point of that is making sure that our clients' expectations are met and that everything that we set out to do for a client, you know, happens. So that's me coordinating those things with the operational teams, be it copyright and registrations or activity tracking, sync, and so on. Yeah, I've been with Sentric for almost 10 years full time now, plus a few years at uni. It was basically when I joined Sentric way back in 2007 or 8, not long after they founded, actually. So, you know, most of my background and knowledge comes from working within Sentric, you know, pros and cons to that, obviously. But so I know the workings of the Sentric, you know, of what we've done, our system, the way we've set things up and gone about things pretty well. And I guess I just try to make sure that the best of the things we do happens for all of our clients. Prior to that, sort of after I left uni, I did some other music licensing work with the Edinburgh Fringe Festival, which I'm sure lots of people will be aware of, as a large, or I think one of the world's biggest independent arts festivals. And so I helped production companies, comedy companies, everyone that was coming to the festival and using music within their productions to ensure that the use of the music was licensed correctly within the productions, basically. So yeah, that's kind of what I'm doing now. My background with Sentric and a little bit of alternative experience before that.
Yeah, thank you, Ross. Yeah, we're going to talk about some of the different players involved in global publishing administration. Sentric is one type. You guys are a global publishing administration company, right? So we'll get more into that here in a minute, and you can explain how Sentric plays that role. Thank you again. Next up, we have Karen Falzone. Karen and I go way back when she was at Stars.
Hi.
And that's where we met. I was at CSAC, and Karen and I met. She was doing licensing over there. And Karen's,
ago.
How many years?
A million.
I know, right? Yeah. Karen is the owner of Mostly Music Agency. Karen, tell us about your background, what you do, what you mostly do at Mostly Music Agency.
Yeah, so I have had my consultancy for about 15 years, and I know many of you, and many of you I don't know, but I have created a space to work with composers and publishers. I also do clearances and licensing, which I've done my whole long career. But when I started Mostly Music, it was really more to be involved in helping people through their entire process in terms of composers or writers. I work with SourceAudio and do a bunch of business affairs work with them, which is always really wonderful. Because it's such a departure from working with talent. It's just a little bit different. But what I do is I try to help artists and composers understand the process from the very beginning of how to monetize their music, but not just how to monetize their music, but how to create relationships with the people who are gonna help them do that. So that's sort of what I like to connect people and do. And I handle a lot of business affairs and rights issues along the way. So I guess that's a good basic.
That's great.
Yeah.
And you do a fine job at it.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah. And then we have Keatly Haldeman, who's the CEO of Riptide. And Keatly and I have known each other for a long time, back from his pig factory days. We met when I was at CSAC. Keatly, tell us what's going on at Riptide and how you got where you're at. Uh-oh, Keatly. Keatly? You okay?
Guys, that was terrible timing. Everything glitched out. Hi, everyone. I think we should be good. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
All right, good. Yeah, so did you ask? I actually missed that. Same question as the others?
Yeah, just same question. What's up at Riptide? What's your role? We know your role. You're the boss over there. And I was just looking, we met a while back when you had started Pig Factory, when I was at CSAC, and quite a bit has evolved since then. Just give us a little bit about that.
So I come from the composer world. I was in bands for many years. I started a custom composition company in 2003 and had a band on the side and trying to figure out how to make money with the band. I was cold calling music supervisors and started to understand placing music to picture. Then I co-founded Pig Factory Music, which was an indie music publisher. And we, with a strong sync focus, we affiliated with royalty societies in Europe, Australia, and Canada, and then developed a sub-publishing network worldwide in the other territories. Let's see, started a production music library called Pacifica Music in 2008 as a joint venture with Riptide. Then we merged with Riptide in 2014. And then more recently, we started a partnership with Sentric Music, and Sentric is our ex-North American sub-publisher worldwide. So we've figured out the commercial music publishing side with a strong sync focus, and then also the production music side. So that's great. What we're doing today. And we launched a record label earlier this year that I'm very excited about.
Nice. Yeah. Very good. All right. Thanks, Keatly. Okay. And I'm Hunter Williams. I spent most of my life at CSAC, the Performing Rights Organization, left there in 2013. Was with the PMA prior to Morgan. Was the executive director there for 2.5 years, and then started working for SourceAudio during that time. And I've been with SourceAudio now 5 years. So you may ask, most of you probably know SourceAudio as a file hosting delivery platform technology, and many of you are probably asking, well, why is SourceAudio presenting and leading a session on global publishing administration? And that's because, and many of you may know this as well, last year, we formed a partnership with Sentric and as well, and we launched SourceAudio Collect to provide global publishing administration services for really anybody, but mostly SourceAudio clients, particularly in production music. And so that's why we're able to speak to this today, and why we wanted to do the panel to talk about the ins and outs of this vast network of MCOs and the different rights types and income streams, and how you collect this, and what are the best practices for that. And so, as you guys know, there's more and more production music out there, music licensing companies out there than ever, and we see that, on SourceAudio, we see just, thankful we have new clients signing up every day, but there's a lot of music, and sub-publishers around the globe are inundated with solicitations to have this music represented by them. So I guess to start this off, to get this going here, is, what is the lay of the land? What are sub-publishers? Keatly, maybe you take this, but what are they? If I'm a small library and I don't have any representation, I go to a sub-publisher. What are my chances of getting representation at this stage?
What are your chances, or what is the purpose of them? Why would you want that?
Yeah, well, what are my? It's again, a lot of them are inundated, so a lot of folks are being told no, they just can't take them on. So
so I think it's challenging. Traditionally the reason why an American library might want a network of sub-publishers or distributors around the world is to have local representation who's going to do the royalty collection for you in their individual territory, and also hopefully find new opportunities to license your music, deliver it to the TV networks and ad agencies and everywhere that you might want to license your music. As you mentioned, Hunter, the space is very crowded these days. Stylistically, the kind of music that is popular today can be done in the box. So, production expenses are really low, and people are able to create content at, with a huge rate. So that's why there's so much music out there in the marketplace. And so, if you go, you really have to have a unique angle on your library, and you have to have something that library is missing. Like if you're focusing on hip hop, or if you're focusing on trailer music, or if you have a very niche thing and you're excellent at it and it's better quality than what they currently have in the library, then you'll probably find distributors who want to take you on. But if you're sort of just a general library, mass market library, and there isn't a unique selling proposition to the music, it will be challenging, because people don't need more music just for the sake of more music, because also all of their existing clients are delivering music to them regularly.
Right. Well, and that really leads us to the point of why SourceAudio started SourceAudio Collect, is because so many of our clients have lots of placements, activity, production that's occurring here in the U.S. that ends up airing overseas, and there's lots of activity over there, and they don't really have anyone looking out for them, and may not necessarily have the sub-publishing network in place. And so this provides them an alternative option to get that representation, to have someone properly registering your works with the foreign MCOs, properly file the documentation and the follow-up and the tracking and all of that. So that's, sort of brings this full circle why SourceAudio Collect exists and why we're talking about this today. So, all right. Let's talk just real quickly, let's get the basics out of the way. MCOs around the globe, any of you jump in here, but they typically do what our PROs do here in the US, right? They do registration and documentation of your works. They do licensing of your works. They collect the money on your works and your performances or your mechanicals or whatever, and then they distribute that back out to you, correct? So the trick is, when I counted, and maybe Ross, correct me if I'm wrong, but when I counted in CWR, the number of societies that are listed it's like 215. Does that sound?
Yeah, I can't verify that as an exact number, but that sounds about right. Yeah. Yep.
Yeah. So how in the world does someone, how do you go to sleep at night with the comfort that 215 companies that are collecting money on your works and supposedly, documenting that and the performances or the transactions, paying it out? How do you keep up with that? Particularly just to follow up, when you look at the, I guess the rights and the income streams that they're representing around the globe, pretty much of this. I mean, you've got your reproduction, you've got your distribution, your public performance, sync, mechanical, print, digital streaming, downloads. I guess one unique thing that you guys have in a lot of European territories and many foreign territories is this broadcast mechanical thing, right? That we don't have here in the US. And so you've got 215 societies, each of them representing one or more of these different rights types. So it's a big, that's why we call it the global royalty machine, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And so I guess, there's many ways to cover that collection. I guess the most simple way is join your local PRO, making sure that performance and mechanicals are covered, and then allow them to collect reciprocally. That's probably the simplest thing you can do. But whether that's the best or not, or most efficient, I guess we might come on to that in more depth. But in theory, the way it should work is that if, most of us, I guess, being US based here, we're represented by BMI, ASCAP, CSAC on the performance side, and then by the mechanical licensing agencies, HFA and others that exist out there on the mechanical side. Then in theory, reciprocally all around the world, those agencies should be covering certainly performance and mechanicals globally for you. So
right.
That's like simple answer number one, I guess.
Right. Well,
but it's just a theory that doesn't work.
Yeah.
Well,
I left it hanging out there to see if you wanted to fire the bullet, but yeah.
Okay. I'm watching some of the comments come in. Michelle Weiss, the broadcast mechanical does exist in the U.S. Did I misspeak there? I know there's a mechanical in the interactive streaming.
The broadcast mechanical is not something that we collect in the United States.
Okay, I just want to make sure I didn't misspeak there. So,
streaming mechanical, maybe she's talking about. I don't know.
Okay, all right.
But just to talk about the broadcast mechanical for a second, I mean that is in the U.S. we get a public performance royalty every time something is broadcast on TV or the radio. In Europe and many other parts of the world, you get that public performance royalty, but you also get mechanical royalty as well, called a broadcast mechanical.
And it's a one-time though. I guess the most important difference is the broadcast mechanical is when the composition, the work is pressed, is copied onto the broadcast medium, I guess, and that's a single thing. And then obviously when that broadcast happens multiple times over and repeats, or on the radio many times, the performance royalty is then generated every single time.
Right. And who collects that? Is that PRS and GAMA and your regular PRO?
Yep. So I guess PRS, the performance side in the UK, MCPS, they are an alliance. They are two companies together, but technically each representing a different right, the mechanical right, which is typical of a lot of, well, certainly the UK and Scandinavian territories have a separate performing and mechanical society, part of the many societies that make up the 215 number that you came up with there, Hunter, as well. Whereas like GAMA, SASM, the BEAM societies, which are non-Anglo-American, normally the performance and mechanical is represented by the same society. So GAMA represent both, SASM represent both.
Right. Okay.
But I don't want to get too technical with that. It's an example of complexities that exist. Yeah.
Right. Okay. Man, this is kind of hard for a person that has ADHD. I'm trying to keep up with the panel here, and I'm getting seeing all these questions come in. So I want to address the questions as best as I can, but you guys bear with me, okay? So let's see. All right. So then we've established that it's a big job. Ross, you mentioned that, probably the easiest way to do this is just go through your local PRO. Let's talk about the different options, okay? Because that's the first, probably easiest step. What are the pros and cons there? And Karen, Keatly, what is, at least here in the U.S., ASCAP and BMI are restricted from doing anything with mechanicals, right? I don't know, maybe BMI is not restricted, they just don't do it. I think ASCAP under the consent decree, I don't think they're able to do mechanicals. Anybody correct me if I'm wrong on that, but I think that's the case. So if I'm with ASCAP or the majority of my catalogs, I'm sorry, Karen? Is that you?
No, I was just saying that's right. Okay. That ASCAP and BMI aren't collecting or distributing mechanicals.
Right. Okay. So
if I can jump in for a sec. So, I mean, on the performance royalty side, why? So the local societies, although they will receive money from the foreign societies as it comes, it's a passive collection. Right. So all the local societies can do, ASCAP, BMI, CSAC, is take that money, take the information that's sent to them as best as it comes, and then distribute it out to the writers. But there's no check to make sure that that's actually been accurately paid. And there are a lot of reasons why it wouldn't be accurately paid. It could be simple mistakes. I like to use my name because it's weird and no one ever spells it correctly. And so if my name shows up incorrectly on a cue sheet, or if some society physically types it from a cue sheet that was turned into their site, because that's literally how it's done. Someone manually types it in many societies. They are going to spell my name wrong 100% of the time. So if my name has been spelled wrong, then that connection isn't made. And so then the automatic matching, if the money is sent over to the US, I won't get paid. So that's one reason. That even assumes that the cue sheet was turned in and that the information on the cue sheet was turned in accurately, which is not a good assumption. In some territories around the world, you won't get paid unless the publisher actually turns in the cue sheet. So you need to have someone locally on the ground who's doing that work for you. And then also there are a lot of other reasons why you might not get paid. There might be claims on a song. So I know we're mainly talking about production music. And so usually the rights chain is easier. If you go outside of that and you talk about commercial music, pop music, hip hop and all that, you might have 20 writers on a song and 15 publishers. And you will get disputes and you will get someone who's claimed a different share than what somebody else has claimed. And if there are multiple registrations with conflicting claims, then that money is frozen in that society until those claims are resolved. But you will never know that there's a claim unless you have a local representative on the ground or you're a direct member of that society to get that notification that there's a claim. So, and there are other reasons, but these are some of the bigger reasons that we see.
Right. I'm going to add, sorry, I was just going to add, I think one of the most important things Keatly just said is that the PROs, it's a passive collection for them. If it comes in, great. They'll distribute it to you if they can, if it works, but it's a very passive collection on their part, globally speaking. And so that's why everyone's running around. That's why we're having this discussion and everyone's running around trying to make relationships with people who are going to help them understand, is there a claim? Did they spell my name wrong? Did this track even ever get registered outside this territory? Things like that, where, if you have a representative or a feet on the ground or you're directly connected to the PRO in the other territory, those are, things everyone's been running around trying to do in order to make this less of a passive situation so that we're actually getting what we're due. And that's like the root of all of this, is to try to tear apart what everybody's doing, what their roles are, and how can they best be of service to you as an owner of music copyrights.
Right. Just to take that a step further with a recent example that we have, we represent a TV production company and we do their global admin, and we're adminning for them, and the cue sheets that they put together for their own works were not right and weren't going to allow us to actually collect those royalties properly. So we're able to clear that up and clean that up for them. But for the other songs that were outside of that publishing company, they wouldn't have gotten paid if we hadn't caught it and been able to help them clear that up. And it was an honest mistake. They want to do the right thing, but the reality is, you know, if there's some TV production company in Spain, and this is the first time they've ever produced this show, and they give it to an intern to make the cue sheet, they're not necessarily going to know what to do there. So you got to double check.
Right. And, you know, one thing for everybody to be aware of, at least the last time I checked, and that was, I guess, when I was at CSAC, which was 7 years ago. But speaking of the pass-through aspect of your local PRO, they take no commission on the royalties they collect from foreign. And the reason I say that is because at CSAC, we continue to have downward pressure on our admin rates because people would come over from the other two organizations and say, well, they don't take anything out of my foreign royalties. So, you know, that sort of does beg the question, what incentive do they have for follow-up and, you know, some of the extra heavy lifting that needs to occur on the back end with the reciprocal arrangements they have with their foreign partners, you know. So, all right.
We've seen just through the simple act of registering locally and doing nothing else, you know, that simple act of making sure a registration is in place directly with the local PRO alone can have a big difference in whether, you know, a client is receiving a royalty or not.
Yeah, right.
Before you even get into any tracking or cue sheet submission, or, you know, so the you know, that boots on the ground thing that was mentioned is really important. Having that direct registration in a local PRO database for them to at least have half a chance of matching something, it makes a difference.
Gotcha. Okay, so that may be the path of least resistance, but there are some issues with just saying, okay, I'm not going to do anything else. I'm just going to go through my local PRO, which we've addressed.
The one other thing just quickly that springs to mind as well is that sometimes payment times for domestic payments versus international vary. So sometimes the PRO to PRO payment might be only once a year, whereas if you're collecting locally for certain rights types, it's paid quarterly. So that's just another one to worth bearing, you know, that's worth bearing in mind. Even if the royalty is going to come, it might take much longer than it would to, you know, collect directly. Right.
Now, is that, so I think GAMA is like that. And I don't want to get too far off track here, but doesn't GAMA pay out on TV performances once a year? Isn't it something like that?
Yeah, GAMA operates quite like that. You know, if you look at something like PRS, most rights types, you know, when you break into the subgroups of performance and mechanical, PRS and MCPS, well, MCPS pay monthly actually, but you know, PRS are paying most right types quarterly, whereas at GAMA, you know, live performance broadcast paid once a year. There's usually a follow-up or a correction, sort of smaller distribution. But yeah, and you know, other PROs operate like that as well. It really varies. And so when a royalty, you know, the usage to then the local PRO's processing time to when they would ordinarily pay it locally, and then into, you know, whatever their international distribution schedule is, those things can create a huge lag. And even collecting directly, you know, it's publishing royalties, there's always a lag. So shortening that as much as possible,
right.
Through direct local collection is another, you know, big tick for me in doing it directly one way or another.
Right. Gotcha. Okay. Anything else on the local PRO option before we move to other options here?
Just some won't come over. I mean, broadcast mechanicals aren't going to come over.
Right.
You know, there isn't that reciprocal relationship because we don't respect that right in the US. So.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, let's talk about the sub-publisher route. So typically, if I'm not doing the local PRO thing, I'm out looking for, at least traditionally, I'm out looking for sub-publishers. You know, NAP was always, and now the PMC is always a big event for U.S. publishers to meet with foreign sub-publishers, vice versa, to make those deals. Karen, maybe you can take this. Can you tell us what a typical sub-publisher, maybe there's not typical anymore, but what does what does a sub-publisher agreement tend to look like?
Yeah, it's typical and it's atypical, you know. I mean, there are the way we have always done it is that sub-publishers are granted all the rights that if you have a publishing deal or an administration deal, let's say, in your own territory, and then you need this arrangement outside of the US, let's just use that since that's where we are. You know, the sub-publisher agreements are interestingly the same, many of them, in terms of what they tend to try to say they're going to do. And this is what they're actually out there doing, which is, you know, taking your business model that you have in the US for whether you're licensing, well, obviously this is production music. So in the production music world, it's a full-on all-in relationship because the distribution of your music isn't separated usually by master and the pub side, right? It's all in one. So you're granting a sub-publisher the right to collect everything they can collect for you in terms of whether they're going to have sync, you know, they're going to pitch it. Hopefully they're pitching your catalog for sync opportunities. Maybe there are blanket deals outside of your territory that they'll include your music in. They'll do the registrations for you in whatever territories you've assigned them. You know, they'll be your feet on the ground in order to collect everything from that territory that you are unable to collect or your local PRO is not collecting on your behalf. Or, right. You know, yeah, I mean, I think that's basically it in a nutshell. There are terms of those agreements. Sorry, I can't figure out how to turn that off when I'm using my computer audio. Sorry, everyone. I think that there's like, you know, we started out doing everything 50-50 back in the day. You know, we did these deals for sub-publishers where they had to take half of whatever they earned because that was the only way for them to make money, especially back when production music, I mean, we're talking like, you know, pennies. So 50% was just the only way to make it worthwhile back then. That was the argument. Mm-hmm. I feel like we're leaning towards more of a, you know, production music has changed so much that I want the industry to change with it. I want the sub-publishing deals to change and have more, you know, flexible options for people in terms of what they want to opt into and what you want them to do for you. And what a lot of people are out there trying to do things for themselves too. So they're, right. You know, you carve out the deal so that I think that's what's happening. I mean, I guess Ross could probably talk to that a little bit more, but I feel like there's a little bit of structure change that's happening here in sub-publishing because of the level of the music, because of the saturation of the market, and because the difference in production music now, where there are full-blown songs and all kinds of, you know, fabulous music out there. Not that it wasn't fabulous before, it just has a bigger purpose now. And I think sub-publishers are starting to realize that, and there's competition too. So perhaps those deals are starting to carve out a little bit. I'll turn it over to Ross, and he might have something more specific.
Yeah, just real quickly, to be clear, Karen, the structural change you're talking, traditionally the 50-50 split, you are seeing that change more in favor of the U.S. Publisher, correct?
Yeah, some companies are willing to, you know, negotiate that percentage, I guess, is what I was getting at. Gotcha.
Okay. Ross.
And I think it's just about making sure you're clear about what you're getting, you know, for that rate. Like, you know, Sentric's not operating 50-50. You know, we're probably closer at the moment, the way that we operate our service for production companies, to an administration deal, really. But we do have options to plug people into sales or creative work as well. I mean, we've got a dedicated sync team for our commercial libraries as well. So there's a big team there on the creative side. So I think it's just making sure that, obviously, it depends on the size of your business, your catalog, you know, where you feel you need exploitation in terms of sales, feet on the ground and things like that, and making sure you're actually then going to get that from people that the company you're partnering up with as sub-publishers. I would say that, you know, it probably goes on to, like, you know, pure administration only. You know, if you're focusing, you know, if you've got sales and you're getting commissions into work in the US that's then getting used internationally anyway, you know, if there's onward broadcast in countries out with the US, which is you know, that does happen a lot of the time, then, you know, administration only type deals, then you should certainly, I would say at this day, the admin rate you should be looking for there will probably be a pretty competitive one, because there are companies out there offering administration only services that need to be competitive. And so I think I guess it's just as the catalog, understanding what it is you're going to get from a sub publisher, you know, and why you would, the old rate of 50-50, I think, Karen, you seem to be suggesting that as well, is probably gone. I can't think of, you know, reasons why you would go down that route anymore, but it's just about making sure that if you're coming down in rate, you know, or if the rate stays up a bit, what kind of sales and feet on the ground work are you getting done, you know, on the creative side? Do you need that, yes or no? If you don't, you know, is it better looking for an administration setup where you're losing less, you know, as a smaller percentage on the go, but you're forgoing any creative work?
Right.
Yeah. I think
what you need to weigh up.
Just jumping in here, I think there's so many opportunities for people and so many new companies coming in, and technology companies who are trying to help us collect our money. And that's also a sticking point, at least in trying to get a sub-publishing deal or enter into one, or different ones throughout the world, depending on what you're doing. It's very, now there's so many different ways. I think more importantly is to make sure, I guess what I'm trying to say is that whoever you're entering into a deal with is actually going to make efforts to collect from all these different verticals.
How do you ensure that? How do you hold them accountable to do that?
Ross?
I would say something as simple as, like, understand, you know, if you're going with a partner, understand what they are, you know, obviously we talked about a simple setup where you're a member of a PRO in the US only and they collect reciprocally. And if you decide to take that to look for a partner in a certain territory, that's again quite a simple relationship that you're adding on to your collection in your local market in the US. And so you'd hopefully just be expecting your German partner to be collecting in Germany. If that's what you need, then great. But it's when you get beyond that, if you're looking for global administration outside of the US, for example, do you go to, again, we'll go back to there's 215 PROs out there that people can connect with. How many, you know, where are you looking for one partner or many? Again, traditionally, a lot of people would have used, a lot of companies would have used multiple sub-publishing partners all around the world. You've got more relationships to manage there, more people to deliver work information to, activity information to, and so on and so forth. But if you're, or are you looking to kind of keep the relationship simple and look for a partner that covers the rest of the world for you? I think it's then really important to understand what that partner's own collection network as well. Are they direct everywhere or not? Do they have sub-publishing relationships? Centric still has sub-publishing relationships in some territories, you know, for example. It's important for our clients to know that, because that, and then obviously in line with the deal that you've done in terms of commissions for sub-publishers and so on. It's just that, you know, it's understanding that if you're going to be looking for a network out with the US, if that's, you know, the context we're using here, and you're plugging into one or more companies for that, then where are they actually, what is their setup, what's their network? You know, it's important to know that. It sounds simple, but, you know, sometimes people aren't thinking to ask those kind of questions. Are you a member in Austria directly, or do you collect for Austria via GEMA in Germany, and what's the implication of that? You know, those kind of, that kind of thinking, if that's an important territory for you.
And what kind of catalog are you? I mean, if you're a production music catalog versus a commercial music catalog, it's a different set of players out there traditionally, and then this, you know, traditions haven't completely gone away. So if you, for production music, it was traditionally, you know, that 50-50 deal, and the idea is that they are exploiting in their territory, they are active, and then it's very difficult for them to distinguish the money what they generated versus what they just passively collected. And so that's always been the argument for, hey, let's just split it. Versus getting an admin company, either a global administrator or even locally on the ground there, which isn't likely to be a library company. It's likely to be more of a traditional music publishing administrator on the ground. And you might see, you know, 20% admin fees or something along those lines. It could be a little less, could be a little more, different than the 50%. So then you have to judge that and say, okay, if you're looking at someone in France and they want a 50-50 and they have a great track record here, how much more do I think they're going to be able to make for me versus what I'm already doing on my own and is likely to be collected in France. And then, let's say it's a 20% admin fee versus a 50% admin fee, do the math, do the calculation, and how long is it going to take? And of course, no one knows. They don't know, and you don't know. So you have to make a judgment call and see what seems to do best. But if you have a good feeling about them and you think they're actually going to work and they're passionate about the catalog and, you fill a hole, then, maybe they are going to generate that income for you. But, you're taking a leap of faith in each relationship that it's going to work out, and each one takes years to mature. So you don't know until you can look back in the rearview mirror and say, oh, well, that one was good, that one wasn't good. Well, and then you, over time, you just have to adjust things or have conversations or hopefully develop good relationships with your partners and, grow with them.
That's a great point. And if you guys could speak to this just a little, or elaborate a little bit more, but, whether it was at CSAC or now with SourceAudio Collect, the question obviously is, okay, when do I expect to see my first check come in, right? I've switched. I was with this company or this group of sub-publishers. Now I'm going with you. When should I see the money? And to your point, Keatly, it's something you have to let play out to see, what's more, excuse me, what's going to be the better option. But that can take years, right? when you consider the delays in the just the variances and the nuances between the different societies and the organizations that you're dealing with, the different distribution schedules, the different registration windows, the different claiming windows, all of that. I mean, it kind of makes your head explode when you try to think about or get some kind of idea of when things mature, once you make a switch, and are you getting the maximum results, right?
Yeah. Ross, do you want to speak to that?
Yeah, no, I think that it's that I kind of alluded to earlier when I was saying, the payment lag when you're relying on reciprocal can be huge because of, an overseas PRO might pay only once per year internationally to ASCAP and BMI, for example. But even, domestic collection, like Hunter, you mentioned about GEMA there, if they're only paying out one right type per year, even if you come through an administrator that's collecting in Germany and you kick off that partnership in March of year X,
yeah,
then by the time the registrations are up and activity and everything,
miss the distribution.
You may, and there's a lag, and it'll be there, but it's just the nature of the beast, and it's terrible, really, the length of time that royalties take to flow through. But that's what it does make it difficult to establish. You're probably. I think when things kick off for the partner for us, and you get registration in place, and there's activity right off the bat, either existing or new activity, you're normally. It's a year, you're thinking 9 to 12 months before you're going to be paying out to that partner initial royalties, and then it will hopefully grow from there. That's it. That's the reality, really.
Right.
And then if you have to go through a sub-publisher, because even the biggest companies have sub-publishers in Japan and places like that, so they're going to collect, they're going to pay out, 4 times a year, hopefully, sometimes twice a year, 90 days after the close, then pay to you, then you have to process it, and then it takes that amount of time as well. Right. And so you might be a year and a half or more.
Yeah, and that's why I understand in the network you're going to plug into, if you're thinking, okay, I'm going to go outside the US and plug into something else. If you're going through someone that's then also using sub-publishers, knowing where that is and not, and whether that's going to be important to you or not. Is Japan a big territory for you? And if the partner you're looking at isn't direct there and you feel it would be more beneficial to direct, do you carve that out and go direct there and use that partner for everywhere else? It's important to know these things so you can make those decisions.
What do you think? I'm just going to chime in because I want to ask another question because I know people want to know this. What do you think is the amount of time on average, which is a really tough question, but if I, let's say, have a catalog and I need a sub-publisher in another territory, so I decide to do a deal and I connect with them and I do a deal, and then it takes, sometimes my experience is 18 to 24 months to start to actually see the international collections happening. And I think, is there something that makes that take that long? Is it the PROs here that take so long for the money to reach?
Ross, maybe it might be helpful to answer Karen's question. Can you speak to what, and I don't want to get too nitty gritty here and, bore people to tears. Maybe we already are, but what happens behind the scenes if I have been going through my local PRO and now I choose to go through Sentric? What happens when you take the action to notify the GAMA, okay, or whoever? When you notify them, you have to provide them the new agreement between you and the publisher, right?
Yep.
And so they have that agreement. They've already got a registration in their database that says ASCAP, right, or BMI. But
they
now,
might have some. It's not usually the whole catalog. It's usually things that they've picked up activity on that, at some point has been a reciprocal payment. Yeah.
But it's currently going to say my publishing name here in the U.S. ASCAP, BMI, CSAC.
Yeah.
If they've tracked it. Now you come in and you go and you register the work. Now as Sentric as the administrator, is that the process, and how long does that take to flip once it's done?
Yeah. What you've described is exactly correct. So we would notify an agreement with the local PRO to say, hey, we are now sub-publisher of catalog X, and anything that exists, presuming it's a deal that covers the entire catalog, any registrations that do exist, we would, be attached on there as sub-publisher. So that can take various times depending on the PRO, and for example, at ICE, I guess, which is in the, covers the PRS. It's an alliance between the PRS and the UK, the Scandinavian societies. GAMA are involved in it, although you deliver separately to GAMA as well, another technical thing. But you usually, there's a turnaround on an agreement notification. So us telling the PRO or telling ICE that we control a catalogue in one or more of their territories is turned around in 10 days, maybe 2 weeks at most. It'd be unusual if it was any longer than that. So you're then you're attached to any works, obviously in line with whatever the effective date is that you've put into the agreement notification, so on and so forth. But at GAMA, you're probably talking 6 weeks, a couple of months sometimes for an agreement to then be fully processed and acknowledged, and you to get an agreement number in return, which you then require for CWR files.
Right.
In other territories, you don't necessarily need an agreement notification. We do it as a matter of course to be attached onto anything that does exist. But there's then differences as to whether you need the agreement number that links you as a sub-publisher to the original publisher within a registration file or not.
Right.
So, and then registrations, again, it's a mixture of timescales.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, again,
well, I guess the point being that and back to Karen's point, it does take time. And everybody just needs to be aware of that. And I hate to say hope for the best, but hope you've made you've done your due diligence. You've chosen the right partner. That partner is going to represent you well. They're going to cover dot all the I's and cross all the T's, and ensure that they're monitoring.
So yeah. For me, in the meantime, there's other, even though we're saying royalties, just because of the PRO system, the way things work, even if you're collecting directly, might take a year to come. If you're working with a partner, they should hopefully be able to tell you that, one, they've received all your works. These are the works that we've received from you, and this is how they look. And we've sent them on this day, and we've had acknowledgement. There's again different acknowledgement processes at different PROs, but you can there should be an audit process there where you can at least check that everything is in place once that sort of onboarding phase is through. So at least that your partner has everything and it has been sent, and so there's those kind of things should be able to happen as well.
Great.
Just to chime in, Ross, you mentioned something that's a nuanced thing that I hear. I feel like I have to explain a lot, so it's worth talking about. Is it a self-publishing deal that's a general catalog deal or specific works? And that is a checkbox that you have to give to the societies as you're registering the agreement. And the difference is, if it's a general agreement, whatever songs are there, pieces of songs that have your publishing entity name associated with it, you'll pick up those royalties. If it's just specific works, it'll only pick up the specific works that are there. So if there are songs out there that have misspellings or are coming in and just say whatever the production name cues, and you haven't specifically registered those songs, then they'll still sit there in limbo.
Yep.
Gotcha. Okay, so we're getting the 10-minute warning here, and geez, we've barely skimmed the surface. We're going to have a part 2 of this at some point. So we've covered, just real quickly, we've covered I had 5 options: local PRO, sub-pub, publishing administration. We've pretty much gone through the publishing administrator option. The DIY, do it yourself, do it what Keatly did with Pig Factory. Can we real quickly touch on, I mean, is that feasible?
It is very difficult. I don't recommend that unless you're well funded and care about this.
A Stanford graduate.
And want to nerd out on this. No, it was a good idea at the time. My partner was in the UK, and he's a German guy, so he knew that European space. I'm Canadian, and I had ties in Australia, so I was able to get those societies going. And we thought it was going to be very simple, that CWR should be a very simple way to register songs all around the world, but it is not that simple. Each society has their own process, procedure, timeline for accepting the works and giving you acknowledgement files. The same CWR file that works fine in one territory, in another territory, few random songs get rejected. In a different territory, different random songs get rejected, all coming back at different timelines. And you have to go through and double check to see, okay, why did this one get rejected here? Make those changes, resubmit it. Meanwhile, you've got a new batch of songs that you have to submit all around the world too. It's very challenging to do that.
Yeah, can imagine. So that's not necessarily, now I do know more and more people that I deal with might go direct in Germany, might go direct in PRS, and then do the sub-publisher thing around the rest of the world, or I'm just using those territories as examples. I think the last option I want to mention is really the hybrid option, because there's not necessarily one size fits all here. That's the beauty of SourceAudio Collect. Just to plug that real quickly is, you can pick all the territories, or you can pick just those that you need on a case-by-case basis. You can use sub-publishers in some territories, use SourceAudio Collect in some territories. You can go with your local PRO, I guess, and can you do that? I don't know. But there is the hybrid, or like I just mentioned, I may want to be directly a direct member of PRS and then do sub-publishers over here and SA Collect here. So there is that option as well. Obviously back to Ross's point, like if you have a sub-publisher network around the world, the more you have, the more you got to deal with, the more hands you're holding, becomes a lot of work. So having a publishing administrator that's in with all of the, directly in with all the societies, or many of them, you're touching one place, you're providing one CWR file, it's going out. It does minimize the work for you. So just keep that in mind as far as the hybrid thing goes. Obviously, the more you're dealing with, the more work you have. So.
Yeah, it's a middle ground for people too, because, like Keatly said, it's super difficult. And I'm not sure that anybody I know that has tried to do it completely on their own has really been able to actually, feel satisfied with that. No matter what effort they make, it's really difficult, a lot of quagmire to deal with. But there is that hybrid that Hunter mentioned, where certain territories you might want to do something direct, certain territories you might have a partner you want to work with. So, I think that the hybrid thing is probably something to really focus on, maybe expand on in another discussion, when we can also talk about the other things that were on your agenda that we didn't have time for today.
Yeah, we didn't have time to touch. Yeah. Okay, so let's try to get as many questions as we can in for 5 minutes. I'm looking through we have lots of comments, lots of, here's a question for Q&A. How do you predict coronavirus will affect, this is just the first one I came to, Coronavirus will affect royalties for 2021, both within the U.S. and internationally. Ross, you have...
Just going to go down, if you think about, well, I guess maybe production catalogs may be slightly shielded from it, but certainly live performance, the licensing network, I guess, that extends beyond just TV and radio, which obviously in lockdown, I guess people are still watching TV, people are still listening to radio, people are still streaming music and watching video on demand and so forth, so on and so forth. Yeah, so maybe production catalogs specifically might be sheltered a little bit from that, just the nature of the usage. But certainly most of our PROs, the ones that have been in touch about it with updates, there's a downward prediction in general, but it's obviously related to live, bars, shops, clubs, pubs,
right,
etc. Those businesses that have been affected by that.
Yeah, there was an article just the other day, I think in Digital Music News, it was talking about one of the Scandinavian countries had put out a press release or something about the decline in royalties. I think it was Tioso or Tono.
Yeah, PRS has too, and the American societies have put it out too. APRA put one out, APRA in Australia. So yeah, everyone's feeling the same thing.
Here's one. If we as songwriters, composers can't keep up with 215 approximate MCOs, then can you explain how SourceAudio, new SourceAudio Collect can help with this? And is SourceAudio Collect similar to SongTrust? Yeah, so similar concept. Again, we work with Sentric. They're our, I guess, back office, if you will. They've got the tentacles out there. It's the beauty of SourceAudio Collect, just, particularly for you clients that are on the system, is that your data presumably is already there, the interested party data, the rights information that we need. We help you organize that data into the CWR standard, help you map that. And so you have one place that's touching it, getting it ready for you, and feeding it out to many, many places. So hopefully that helps a little bit with that question. I'm going to move on to other questions, and I'll give you my email address here at the end for other questions about SourceAudio Collect. You can contact me directly. What are the royalties that you normally get directly from PRO versus royalties paid by the publisher directly to the composer for the same track? I'm just skimming through here. What are the royalties that you normally get directly from PRO versus royalties paid by the publisher directly to the composers? I mean, you're getting the performance royalties, mechanicals coming from the publisher, sync, if they're sharing sync, right?
Mm-hmm. The only royalties you'll get if you're a composer that's published is the writer's share of public performance royalty.
That's right.
Yeah.
Okay, 2 more minutes.
Hunter, I want to throw this out. Someone asked, can you collect past broadcast mechanicals from MCPS retroactively?
Good question.
And this is a BMI writer asking. Is it like 2 years you can go back?
I can't remember for broadcast mechanicals specifically, but yeah, you can back claim. And again, it's the usual thing where it's different policies at different PROs and even for different right types. For example, on the commercial music side, a physical released by a record label can be back claimed up to 6 years in the past.
Okay.
Whereas live on the performance side can, for certain types of licensing, you can go back more than a year, but generally we say 12 months for live performance. So yeah, and again, that's another thing. It's those kind of things where if you've got, you're either having to go, you should be able to ask BMI to follow up internationally on that. If you think you've not seen international royalties, you're then relying on them to contact local PRO and do all that follow up for you. If you've got a partner on the ground, they can go and find that out, either because the society locally makes it available in a database and a view, more and more of them are doing that. Or if they don't, then your local publishing partner can go and ask the PRO and dig into it for you. That's the general gist of it.
Okay, great. Thank you.
All right, I think we're out of time. It's 2 o'clock my time, 12 o'clock your time out on the West Coast. Ross, what time? 8 o'clock there?
Bedtime.
Bedtime.
No, it's 8 o'clock. Yeah, it's not too bad. It's fine.
thank you everybody for the participants here. Thanks for all Morgan and the PMA and Michelle and all the people that join in to listen. You can reach me, Hunter at sourceaudio.com, very easy. If you have any follow-up questions about Source Audio Collect and other contact information,
reach out to me. Yeah, whatever you guys need. I'm also here to help. Thank you guys all for being here. Just in case you haven't got enough royalty talk, we are doing a mechanicals panel on September 1st with the Mechanical Licensing Collective. So more information on that to come, but we will dig into mechanicals a lot more in 2 weeks. So thank you Source Audio for this wonderful panel, and thank you guys to all the panelists and for everyone who joined us. We will see you in a couple weeks. Have a great rest of your week.